I want you to picture something for me. You're 71 years old. You've been living on the other side of the world for 9 years. And one ordinary Tuesday morning, you're sitting on your balcony with a cup of black coffee, mountains on the horizon, and for no particular reason, you open your laptop and you type "apartments for rent Toledo, Ohio" into a search bar. Not because you're planning anything, not because anyone's pushing you, just to see, just to check what a Tuesday morning looks like from the other side of that door. And the number that comes back on the screen closes something in your chest you didn't know was still open. What you're realizing, sitting there on that balcony with the coffee going cold, is that the country you love doesn't have a slot for you anymore, not the way it used to, and it's not their fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's just math. The math has stopped working, and when you sit with that long enough, you start to understand something else. You're not homesick. You're something else. You're a man without a country, and the country in question is the one you were born in. I'm Ray Halverson. I'm 71 years old. 9 years ago, I sold a 2-bedroom ranch house in Toledo, Ohio, and I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok. And I'm going to tell you the honest truth about why I can't afford to go home, and why that may be the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, I know how that sounds. Can't go home. A lot of these videos, guys wave their hand and say they don't want to go home. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I've done the arithmetic 5 different ways, and there is no version of it where I go back to America and land on my feet. I want to be straight with you about that because I think there are a lot of us over here in the same boat, and I don't think we talk about it enough. But before we get into the numbers, let me back up, because none of this makes sense unless you know where I'm coming from. My wife Barbara passed away 10 years ago. Breast cancer. We'd been married 44 years. We raised 2 kids together in the same house on the same street, in the same North Side Toledo neighborhood, and when she was gone, that house was the loudest quiet I've ever been in. Barbara was the social one. I was the guy who ran the press room for 32 years, half of that as foreman, at a commercial print shop off Airport Highway. She was the one who kept the calendar. When she was gone, I sat in my recliner and I listened to the refrigerator hum for about 8 months. My daughter Rachel is the organized one. She's in Cincinnati with her husband and 2 kids, my grandkids, Nate and Emma. Rachel's a paralegal. She keeps a shared spreadsheet for family Christmas. That's the level of organized we're talking about. My son Kevin is the practical one. He's in Denver, works for a mining supply company. 1 kid, Charlie. Both of them are good kids. Both of them called me every single week after Barbara died, and I understood why. They'd lost their mother, and they were terrified of losing me too. But 8 months in, the calls started to feel less like love and more like something else. Like being checked on. Like being counted. Rachel called me on a Wednesday about a year after the funeral and asked if I'd ever consider moving to Cincinnati. There was an apartment complex 2 miles from her house. She'd already been in and gotten the brochure. Kevin got in on the same conversation the next Sunday and offered to help me put a down payment on a condo near Denver, and I know they meant it kindly. But what I was hearing was, "Dad, we don't think you can do this alone." And they weren't wrong to worry. They just weren't right about what to do about it. I told them I'd think about it, and I did. I thought about it for months. I sat in Barbara's chair with a yellow legal pad. I do all my thinking on paper. My old man was the same way, and I ran the numbers. Move to Cincinnati. Move to Denver. Sell the house, split the profit, rent a place near one of the kids. Whatever the arrangement, the math ended in the same place. I would spend my last years being a chore on somebody else's schedule. Somebody's dad who needed picking up. Somebody's grandfather who couldn't drive at night anymore. That's not the deal I made with the world. I don't blame anybody for offering it. But that's not the last chapter I wanted to write. So one night, I remember this exactly, I put down the legal pad and I asked myself a question I hadn't let myself ask in maybe 30 years. If I could do anything at all, live anywhere at all, spend the rest of my time on this earth doing whatever I wanted, what would that look like? And the answer that came back surprised me. I didn't want to move closer to the kids. I wanted to disappear for a while and see what was left of me when nobody was watching, not run away. Just get out of the pattern that was slowly turning me into somebody I didn't recognize. Now, I need to be honest with you. I didn't wake up the next morning and go buy a plane ticket to Thailand. This wasn't impulsive. It took months, and it started the strangest way. I was at the VA hospital in Ann Arbor. I go up there for my regular checkups. I'm a Vietnam-era vet. Did one tour in 73, 74. And I was sitting in the waiting room next to another old vet named Bill. Bill was maybe 68, a big guy, wore a Milwaukee Brewers cap. We got to talking about the weather, and then about who was watching the Tigers game, and then somehow about how expensive everything had gotten. Bill said something offhand. He said, "You know, my brother-in-law retired to Chiang Mai 3 years ago. Guy lives like a king on his Social Security check. Bought a condo, married a lovely Thai woman, sends me photos of his grandkid at some temple." And he pulled out his phone and showed me. A weathered American guy about my age, standing in front of a mountain, grinning like he'd figured something out the rest of us hadn't. I could not stop thinking about that photograph. I don't know why, it just sat with me. For 2 weeks, I did what I always do when something rattles around in my head. I got curious. I started reading. Expat blogs, YouTube videos, Facebook groups full of retired teachers and mechanics and printers and truck drivers, guys just like me, telling their stories. Cost of a hospital visit, cost of a decent apartment, cost of a plate of noodles at the market. And every one of them, the ones who'd stuck it out for 5 or 10 or 15 years, said a version of the same thing. It's not perfect, nothing is. But it's a whole lot better than growing old in a country that's forgotten how to make room for you. That last part is what got me. I kept it to myself for a long time. I didn't tell Rachel, I didn't tell Kevin. I sat with it. I read about the Thailand non-immigrant OA long stay visa, the health insurance requirement, the bank deposit requirement. I learned there's something called the Thailand Elite Visa, where you pay a fee and get 5 years locked in with almost no bureaucracy. I built a spreadsheet. Yes, on a legal pad, because that's who I am. Rents in Chiang Mai and Bangkok. I built another spreadsheet of what it would cost me to keep living in Toledo. And around 4 months into the reading, I made a deal with myself. I was going to take a trip. Just a trip. 2 weeks. If I hated it, I'd come home and put a down payment on that Cincinnati apartment and be a good dad to Rachel for the rest of my days. I told the kids I was taking a vacation to Southeast Asia. Rachel got worried immediately. "Dad, is that safe at your age?" I told her plenty of people my age travel. She looked unconvinced, but she let it go. I flew out of Detroit in February. Michigan in February is not what any human being should be asked to endure. I landed at Suwon Napum Airport in Bangkok 22 hours later, including a layover in Tokyo, and I walked out of the arrivals hall into a wall of humid air that felt like walking into a hot shower with your clothes on. Traffic everywhere, motorbikes weaving between cars, a whole family of 4 on one scooter, no helmets, vendors selling grilled meat off carts on the sidewalk. It was loud and it was hot and it was completely, absolutely alive. And I stood there on the curb with my one suitcase and I thought, well, Ray, you wanted to disappear for a while. Congratulations. I spent 3 days in Bangkok, stayed in a modest hotel in Sukhum Wit, one of the walkable neighborhoods, ate at little street stalls, rode the BTS SkyTrain, sat in coffee shops and let the city move around me, and for the first time in maybe 2 years, I did not feel invisible. The woman at the 7-Eleven asked where I was from and told me her nephew lived in Chicago. A guy at a noodle stall pointed me to a better one down the block. A cab driver spent 40 minutes telling me about his daughter's wedding. It wasn't small talk, it was actual talk. From actual people, the kind I'd almost forgotten existed. From Bangkok, I flew up north to Chiang Mai, and that's where everything shifted. Chiang Mai is smaller than Bangkok, about 1 million people, but it's still a real city. Universities, hospitals, malls, an international airport, but it also has something Bangkok didn't have for me. It felt manageable. I could see myself living there. I stayed in an Airbnb in a neighborhood called Nim Mon, right up against the mountain, with a balcony that looked at Doi Suthep peeking through the clouds. The rent was 12,000 baht a month, that's about $340 for a fully furnished 1-bedroom with air conditioning and fiber internet. I sat on that balcony my first night with a bottle of Chang beer I'd bought at the 7-Eleven downstairs for less than $1, and I watched the sun go down behind the mountain, and I thought, I could do this, not visit, live. The rest of that trip I walked around. I went to Central Festival, one of the big malls. Clean, air-conditioned, grocery store, pharmacy, movie theater, dozens of restaurants. I visited Chiang Mai Ram Hospital just to see what a Thai hospital looked like. Clean, modern English on all the signs. A general checkup was about 800 baht, 23 US dollars, with a doctor who'd been trained in Bangkok. In America, with Medicare, I'd still have paid more than that in copays. I met a guy at a coffee shop on Nim Mon Road named Doug from Ontario. Retired mining engineer, been in Chiang Mai 4 years. He introduced me to 2 more expats, Klaus from Germany and Bill from Milwaukee, no relation to the Bill at the VA. And they all told me the same thing over black coffee. The first year is the hardest. After that, you stop comparing and you start living. At the end of those 2 weeks, I flew back to Detroit. I didn't announce anything to the kids. I sat with it for 3 days in that too-quiet house. I ran the numbers one more time, and then I called a realtor. That's when it hit the fan. Rachel came up from Cincinnati to help me pack a box of Barbara's china, and she saw the for sale sign in the yard. She didn't yell. Rachel never yells. But she got very quiet, sat down at the kitchen table and asked, "Dad, what is going on?" I told her the truth. I was moving to Chiang Mai. She stared at me like I'd said I was becoming a professional wrestler. Then she called Kevin, and Kevin flew in from Denver the next weekend, and the 3 of us sat in that same kitchen where I'd raised them and had the hardest conversation we'd had since Barbara's funeral. Rachel had done research. She had statistics. Age of retirees who move abroad and return within 2 years. Rate of scams. Cost of emergency medical evacuation. Kevin was more direct. "Dad, do you understand it's a 20-hour flight? If you fall down and break a hip, we cannot drive over. There is no driving over." Rachel jumped back in. "We are not trying to control you. We just want to know what happens if something goes wrong." I let him finish, and when they were done, I said, "I understand what you're worried about, and you're not wrong to be worried. But I've thought about this for 8 months. I've read everything. I've been there. I'm going. And the best thing you can do for me is be my kids from a distance instead of trying to be my case managers up close." Rachel's face went tight. "That's not fair." "It is fair. And it's not what I want either. But it's the deal we're in." The conversation ended in something worse than yelling. It ended in silence. Rachel drove home to Cincinnati that night, and Kevin flew back to Denver in the morning. And for the next 5 weeks, I sold the house, sold the truck, put a lifetime of accumulated stuff into 2 suitcases and a small storage unit, and my kids barely spoke to me. Rachel called once, said, "I hope you know what you're doing," and hung up. Kevin sent one text. It said, "Dad, please buy the health insurance." I bought the health insurance. The day before my flight, Rachel called back. She didn't say much. Just, "Be careful, Dad." I told her I would. Then I got on the plane. The Detroit to Bangkok run with the Tokyo layover is 20 hours in the air, and that is a long time to sit with your thoughts. A long time to hear your daughter's voice saying please in the back of your head. A long time to wonder if you've lost your mind. Somewhere over the Pacific, in the dark, with the whole cabin asleep around me, I had what I can only call a quiet panic. Just sitting there thinking about Barbara, about the house I just sold, about Rachel and Kevin, about the 71-year-old man I'd become, who was flying to a country he'd been in exactly once. And I thought, "Ray, what have you done?" Then the sun came up over the wing, and I looked out the window, and there was this endless blue Pacific with little scattered green islands. And something in my chest let go just a little, and I thought, well, whatever this is, you're not turning around now. I landed in Bangkok on a Wednesday afternoon in April, hot air like a wet towel. I'd hired a driver through an online service, a Thai guy named Somsak, about 60, big gap-toothed grin, holding a piece of cardboard with my name spelled Ray Halverson, no U, no Y. "Close enough. Welcome to Thailand, Mr. Ray. First time?" "Second," I told him, "but first time I'm staying." Somsak grinned wider and loaded my suitcases into his van, and off we went into Bangkok traffic, which, if you have never seen Bangkok traffic, you have not lived. The last flight to Chiang Mai out of Bangkok had already gone for the day. So Somsak took me to a small inn in the Ek Kamai neighborhood. Cost me 500 baht, $14, for a clean room with a working AC and a shower that had 2 settings, cold and slightly less cold. I lay down on that bed and I did not feel afraid. I felt tired, and I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next morning I flew a 1-hour hopper to Chiang Mai, same Airbnb I'd stayed in on the scouting trip. The owner, A Thai woman in her late 50s named Ma Li met me at the door with a set of keys and a bowl of sliced mango and a big glass of iced water. She'd remembered me. "Welcome home, Mr. Ray," she said, and I'm not ashamed to say I teared up a little standing there in the doorway of an apartment I did not yet know how to unlock. I signed a 6-month lease on the spot at 12,000 baht a month, $340, fiber internet, air conditioning, a small kitchen, a balcony that looked at the mountain. Molly handed me the keys and said, "You need anything, you call me. Any hour. I am here." She meant it. I unpacked my 2 suitcases in about 20 minutes. Then I sat on the balcony and I looked at that mountain for a very long time. The first month was a blur of small logistics. Buy a local SIM card. Open a bank account. Get a food delivery app that worked with my American credit card. Learn which Song Tao went where. Those are the red pickup trucks that work as shared taxis around Chiang Mai. Learn to say Sa Wadi Krop, hello, and Kop Kun Krop, thank you, without butchering it. Learn that pointing your feet at someone in Thailand is deeply insulting. I found that out at a temple by accident, and an old man leaned over and very gently rotated my ankles for me without a word. My face went red as a tomato. Nobody laughed. Everybody just went back to what they were doing. I met my neighbors within a week. Directly across the hall was an older couple, a retired schoolteacher named Som Chai and his wife Sue Ree. Both of them were in their late 60s. Both of them had lived in that same apartment complex for 14 years. Som Chai spoke decent English, taught it in high school for 35 years. He and Sue Ree invited me over for dinner the second time we ran into each other in the hallway before I'd even bought a fork. Homemade cow soy. That's the northern Thai curry noodle soup that will ruin you for other soups. And Sue Ree pressed second helpings on me until I had to put my hand over the bowl. Som Chai said, "Now you are our neighbor. Now you are family." Next door on my side was a woman named Pim. She was maybe 47, a nurse at Chiang Mai Ram Hospital, and she was raising 2 kids on her own. A 12-year-old boy named Beam and a 15-year-old girl named Kwan. Her husband had died of a stroke 4 years before. First time I saw her, she was hauling 5 grocery bags up the stairwell in a downpour and struggling with her keys. I offered to hold the bags. She looked at me like I just offered her a kidney. "Kop Kunka," she said. "Thank you." After that, every time we crossed in the hallway, she'd wave, ask how I was doing. A few weeks in, she knocked on my door with a plate of muping, grilled pork skewers on bamboo sticks, and said her kids had made too many. I'm pretty sure her kids had made exactly the right number, and Pim had made too many on purpose. I want to tell you about the day my air conditioning stopped working, because this is when I understood something about the place I'd landed. It was the middle of April, which in Chiang Mai is the hottest month, and my AC unit died at 2 in the afternoon on a Sunday, 98 degrees outside, inside my apartment climbing fast. I did not know who to call. I did not know how to say, "My air conditioner is broken" in Thai. I was standing in the middle of my living room in a soaked-through undershirt when there was a knock at the door. It was Som Chai from across the hall. "Mr. Ray, I hear you moving. Sound like something wrong." I told him about the AC. He looked at the unit for about 10 seconds, pulled out his phone, called somebody, spoke rapid Thai for 30 seconds, hung up, and said, 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, an old man named Loong Boon showed up with a metal toolbox, replaced a capacitor, and the AC blew cold again. Cost me 400 baht, about $11, parts and labor. Som Chai refused to let me pay him anything for making the call. "We are neighbors," he said, as if that explained the whole world, and maybe it did. Back in Toledo, I'd lived in the same house for 34 years. I knew maybe 3 of my neighbors by name. If my AC had broken in Toledo, I'd have called a company, gotten a next Thursday appointment, and paid $350 for a service call and another $400 for the capacitor. Here I knocked on a stranger's door, and the problem was solved in 20 minutes. Nobody billed me for their time. Nobody suggested I upgrade the whole system. It just got fixed. I sat in front of that AC unit with a cold Chang beer, felt the cold air blow across my face, and understood I was living in a different operating system than the one I'd grown up in. I started going to the same coffee shop every morning, a little shophouse place 2 blocks from my building called something long in Thai that I still can't pronounce. The woman who ran the counter was named Nan, maybe 30 years old. On the third morning, before I'd even ordered, she said, "Americano hot, no sugar, 1 pandan bun." Same. I nodded, and she had it ready in 2 minutes. One morning I realized halfway to the counter that I'd left my wallet at home. I started apologizing. Nan waved me off. "You pay tomorrow, no problem." She'd known me for a week. Try that at a Starbucks in Toledo, Ohio, and see how far you get. That's when I started to understand what Chiang Mai actually was for me. It wasn't cheap, it wasn't exotic. It was a place where a stranger extended trust to another stranger because that was the default setting instead of the exception. The expat community found me pretty quickly. I joined a Facebook group and started going to a Thursday morning meetup at a coffee shop on Nimmon Road. Doug from Ontario, the guy I'd met on the scouting trip, was a regular. Klaus from Germany, Bill from Milwaukee, a Kiwi named Peter, an Australian named Tim, retired teachers, retired engineers, retired guys from the trades, ages 55 to 79. All of us trying to figure out this particular version of the last chapter. They folded me in with no ceremony, no interrogation about my finances, no side-eye at my Ohio accent. I was just another guy who'd showed up. I've been going to that Thursday coffee for 9 years now. It has changed my life more than any single thing except meeting Barbara. About 5 months in, I had a health scare. Woke up one morning at 4 a.m. with a heavy pressure in my chest. I'm 66 at that point, decent shape, no history of heart trouble, but I'd had a triple bypass and a cousin at 63, so I know what to watch for. I got dressed, took a grab car to Chiang Mai Ram Hospital Emergency, walked up to the desk, and told the nurse I was having chest pain. She did not ask for insurance. She did not hand me a clipboard with 40 pages. She took me straight back. Within 15 minutes, I had an EKG, a chest X-ray, and a blood draw. Within 40 minutes, a young cardiologist named Dr. Sutep, trained in Bangkok, English absolutely fluent, was sitting on a stool next to my bed showing me the printout. It was not a heart attack. It was severe acid reflux and dehydration. I'd been drinking too much coffee, not enough water, and not eating breakfast. He gave me a prescription for a proton pump inhibitor and a talking to about my caffeine intake. The entire visit, including the cardiologist, the EKG, the X-ray, the blood work, and the medication, cost 2,800 baht. That's $80. In an American ER, that same visit would have been a $5,000 bill I'd have been paying off for a year. And I sat in the taxi on the way home holding that receipt, and I thought about what Rachel had said. What if something happens? I understood her fear, but what she couldn't see from Cincinnati was that I wasn't unprotected here. I was better protected than I'd ever been in America. I called Rachel that night and told her. I did not sugarcoat it. I said I'd had chest pain and gone to the hospital. There was a long pause. "Are you okay?" I told her it was reflux, and I told her the bill, and there was a longer pause. Then she said, "That's not possible." I laughed and told her it was possible. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I still wish you were closer, Dad." I told her I knew, and I told her I wished the same thing sometimes. And we sat on the phone in silence for a bit, and it was the first non-awkward silence we'd had in maybe a year. By month 6, something in me had shifted. I stopped feeling like a visitor. I started feeling like a resident. I knew which Song Tao roots went where. I knew which vendor at the Warorot market had the best mangoes. I knew Lung Wei Chai, the security guard at my building, and he knew me. Every evening as I came in, he'd smile and say, "Good evening, Lung Rei." Lung means uncle. It's how Thais address older men respectfully. I'd tip my head. Sawa di krop, Lung Wei Chai. And that small exchange became the most important 3 seconds of my day. I started volunteering. Som Chai from across the hall knew a nun who ran an after-school English program for kids in a poorer neighborhood down by the river, and he asked if I'd come read with them one afternoon a week. I said sure. First day I showed up, there was a little 10-year-old girl named Mint who was reading a picture book to herself in the corner. She looked up when I came in, and she asked me, in perfect, careful English, "Are you the American teacher?" I told her I wasn't a teacher. I was just a guy who liked to read. She said, "Then you can read with me. I need practice." She's been my Wednesday afternoon appointment for 9 years now. Mint is 19 now, in her second year at Chiang Mai University, studying accounting. I paid for her SAT prep 3 years ago out of the little cushion at the end of my month. She calls me Loong Ray, and when she introduces me to her professors, she tells them I taught her half of what she knows. That is not true, but I love that she says it. There is a guy at the Thursday Coffee named Peter, the New Zealander I mentioned, who's been in Thailand 22 years. Peter says exactly one wise thing at every meetup, and then he shuts up and drinks his coffee. Peter's line to me in month 8 was this. He said, "Ray, the trick isn't finding paradise. There's no paradise. The trick is finding the place where your check actually works. Everything else grows from that." I have thought about that line at least once a week for 9 years. He was right. The financial floor is not the point of moving abroad, but without the financial floor, there is no floor to grow anything else on. Which brings me to Pim. I've told you Pim was my neighbor, nurse at Chiang Mai Ram, widow, 2 kids. What I haven't told you is what happened over the next few years. Because it happened slow, and it happened without either of us planning anything. She kept bringing me food. I kept helping her with English homework the kids brought home. I fixed her son Beam's bicycle chain one Saturday. She took me to the market on Sunday mornings and taught me how to bargain in Thai. On my second Songkran. That's the Thai New Year. They throw water at each other in the streets. I highly recommend it. Pim and her kids showed up at my door with soaked shirts and pulled me out into the street with a bucket of water, and I laughed for the first time in years the way you laugh when you've stopped watching yourself do it. At month 30, she started making me a plate of dinner every evening. At year 3, I stopped correcting her when she referred to me as her partner to strangers. At year 5, she said, "Ray, I love you. Do you love me?" And I said, "Pim, I have loved you for a very long time, and I have been too old and too scared to say so." At year 7, we got married at a small Buddhist ceremony at a temple in Mai Reem. Somchai and Suri came, Doug and Klaus and Bill came, Rachel and Kevin and their families flew over for it. That was Kevin's 3rd visit and Rachel's 2nd. Mint was there, wearing the Chiang Mai University t-shirt I'd bought her for her acceptance letter. Pim's kids stood as witnesses. My wife's name is Pim Halverson. She kept her Thai name too. She uses whichever one fits the room. I want to tell you about the day my kids finally understood. Rachel came to visit at month 11. She was still angry when she landed. She was gentler about it than she'd been in the kitchen back in Toledo, but she was still expecting to find me diminished, lonely, maybe wearing the wrong clothes, definitely losing weight. She was ready to be sad for me. Instead, she watched Ma Lee, my landlord, bring me a small bag of tangerines she'd picked up at the market because she knew I liked them. She watched Loong Wee Chai, the security guard, salute me as we came in. She sat at Som Chai and Suri's kitchen table and ate khao soi and watched Suri pat my hand while she talked. On Rachel's 5th night, we were walking back from dinner, and Pim's son Beam ran out of his apartment to show Rachel a drawing he'd made at school. He pointed to a figure in the drawing. "That is Loong Ray. He is our neighbor. He is nice." Rachel didn't say anything, but I could see her eyes get wet. Later, back at my apartment, she sat on my couch, looked around at my simple furniture, at the ceiling fan, at the balcony door open to the warm evening, and she said, "I get it now." "Dad." "Get what?" "Why you stayed." She hugged me the next morning at the airport in a way she hadn't hugged me since she was 12. Before she walked through security, she said, "I'm going to tell Kevin. I'm going to tell him you're okay. That you're actually really okay." Kevin came 4 months later. He was harder to convince. Kevin is an engineer's brain in a father's body. He wanted numbers, spreadsheets, exit plans, worst-case scenarios. I had answers for all of it. I showed him my international health insurance. I walked him through my budget. I introduced him to my doctor. By the end of his 8-day visit, he sat on my balcony with a beer and said, "Dad, I've been trying to find the hole in this and I can't." I told him there wasn't one. Not because it was perfect, but because I'd already accounted for the imperfect. He shrugged. "All right then, I guess I'm a little jealous." That made me laugh so hard I choked on my beer. That was 8 years ago. Kevin has been back 4 more times. Rachel comes every other year and brings the grandkids. Pim and I flew back to the States twice. Once for Kevin's second daughter's baptism, once for Rachel's 40th birthday. Both trips felt like visits to a country I used to live in. My kids are grown. My grandkids know me. They know Pim. Nate and Emma call her Auntie Pim. Charlie is starting to write me letters in shaky 3rd grade cursive. So here we are 9 years in, And this is where the video really starts, because everything I've told you so far is just background. Here's what I've been trying to work my way around to saying, and it's the thing none of us over here ever quite say out loud. I can't afford to go home. Not won't. Can't. Every so often I sit on that balcony with my coffee and I do the math again just to check. Not because I'm homesick, not because I'm unhappy, but because a man ought to know his own accounts. And every time I run the numbers, I run into the same wall. My Social Security check, after they take out Medicare Part B, is $2,233 a month. That's not a poor man's check. In Chiang Mai, it's a comfortable check. I pay 12,000 baht for a nice one-bedroom in a good neighborhood. $340. Pim and I share it. Electricity, water, internet, phone, all in around $90. I eat like a king at little food stalls where a good meal is 60 baht, $1.70. My health insurance is $100 a month. When I look at my monthly totals, I have a small cushion at the end of every month. Small but real. Enough to save for a rainy day. Enough to help Mint with her school books. Enough to fly home to see the grandkids once a year in Economy Plus. Now, look at what going back would look like. I don't have a house anymore. I sold it 9 years ago. Real estate in America has doubled since then. In some cities, tripled. I could not buy back the house I sold if I sold everything I own. I do not have a car. I need to buy one, insure it. I hear car insurance in America is a nightmare now, and register it in whatever state I landed. I do not have credit. My old credit cards atrophied years ago. My credit score, if I still have one, is probably a whisper. No landlord runs a credit check on a 71-year-old with a decade of foreign residency and a whisper score and says yes. Even if I found a landlord who would take me, the average rent in the average American city, not New York, not San Francisco, just an average city, is somewhere between $1,400 and $1,600 a month for a decent one-bedroom. Call it $1,500. That's $1,500 out of my $2,233. That leaves me $733 a month for utilities, phone, internet, groceries, gas, car insurance, health copays, and everything else that makes up an American life. Anybody who has run those numbers knows what the answer is. The answer is this: I cannot do it. Not without eating into my small savings until they're gone, and then eating cat food after that. Now, let's say I bring in a supplement. I've got a small YouTube channel where I talk about life over here. It doesn't make much. A few hundred a month, some months more, some months less. But nobody in America wants to watch a channel called Ray in Toledo. The whole reason people watch is because I'm sitting on a balcony in Chiang Mai. Move me to Ohio, and that channel is dead in a month. So there is no financial version of me going home. And the financial part isn't even the hardest part. The hard part is this. My friends in America, the guys I worked with, the guys from church, the guys from the print shop, half of them are dead. The other half moved to Florida or Arizona or don't remember my name. The social slot I had in Toledo closed the day I got on that plane 9 years ago. It's not sitting there waiting for me. There is no Cheers where everybody knows my name. Rachel and Kevin are grown, they've got their own lives, and I already tried the moving closer to the kids idea and rejected it back when I was 62 for good reasons. Those reasons are still good. I am 71 years old. I have some years left. I don't know how many, and I do not want to spend the years I have left living small in a country that doesn't have a place for me anymore. That's not America's fault. That's not anybody's fault. It's just where I am. Now here's the part I want to be honest about. I'm not saying Thailand is perfect. It absolutely isn't. The traffic on the second ring road at 5 p.m. will make you consider your religion. The bureaucracy at immigration when you're doing your 90-day report is its own particular circle of hell. The brownouts still happen sometimes in the rainy season, and my internet dies right in the middle of a video call with the grandkids. I miss a good Toledo hot dog. I miss walking through crunchy leaves in October. I miss the way Barbara used to hum in the kitchen. Some of those things I'll never stop missing, but those are small things next to what I've got. I have a wife who watches out for me. I have neighbors who bring me tangerines. I have Wednesday afternoons with a 19-year-old girl who used to sit on a mat and read picture books to me and who now teaches me things about accounting. I have Thursday coffee with a bunch of old men who would notice if I didn't show up. I have a doctor who calls me back the same day. I have a small YouTube channel that a few thousand of you watch and talk to me on. I have a country I love, America, that I visit and I appreciate, and I fly a small flag on my balcony every 4th of July. And I have a country I live in, Thailand, that has never made me feel less than for showing up here at 62 with a broken heart and 2 suitcases. A few weeks ago, Pim knocked on Somchai and Suri's door with a bowl of soup she'd made too much of. Suri opened the door, saw us both standing there, and said in her careful English, "Ray, Pim, you are a blessing to us." I didn't know what to say. So I just said, "You have been a blessing to us too." And I meant it because it was true. I told you at the start of this video that I am a man without a country, and I said it because a lot of us over here feel that way, and none of us talk about it. But sitting here now on this balcony 9 years in, watching the mountain go dark and the lights come on in the neighborhood, I want to take that back. I am not a man without a country. I have two. One I was born in and can't afford to go back to. One I moved to and can't afford to leave. And both of them made me who I am, at 71 years old, sitting on this balcony with a coffee, looking at a mountain, alive. Before I wrap up, I want to tell you about something that helped me when I was in the thick of the decision-making 9 years ago. There is a book called The Right Move. It walks through the real costs, the cities compared, the visa process, the healthcare system, and the traps that would have cost me thousands if I hadn't known about them. I did not write it. I don't get anything if you don't buy it. But if you are seriously considering a move like this, I genuinely think it will save you a lot of grief and probably a fair bit of money. There is a link in the description if you want to check it out. No pressure. Just wanted to mention it. And if any of what I've said today landed for you, if you saw yourself in any of this, do me a favor and hit the like button and subscribe. There are more stories like this one on the channel, and I think you'll find them worth your time. And you know what? If you disagree with me, tell me in the comments. I read every comment, and I answer as many as I can. Whether you think I'm right or you think I'm full of hot air, I want to hear it. That's what makes this thing work. Thanks for sitting with me. I'll see you in the next one.